Hi guys, welcome to another analysis video. It's been a little while. I have been playing a lot of chess, I've got to say, so if I do want to catch up on the games, then there are so many I could go through. This one's special, which is why I've made an effort. As you can see, I'm wearing a very snazzy dark green t-shirt with a little emblem, as you can see. I'll try and get it to the camera if I get the right side. Oh, gosh, I tried this earlier, I got it wrong that time too. Cameras are in reverse, believe it or not. Anyway, I'm now part of the Celtic Tiger revolution. We got a first team that's trampling the first division currently. Well, kinda. They won their first match and then got annihilated. And funny enough, I'm playing for the second team. And we had a very similar weekend. Now, I don't know if it's anything to do with the Saturday night and the fun and shenanigans that goes on the Saturday night. But it probably doesn't help the chess the next day. Let's put it that way. Results talk, right? I mean, you can check them out in a minute. I'm going to go to that page in a second. Anyway, big shout out to Chris, our all-conquering manager. He's managed to get the Tigers up into the first division in the first place. Obviously, he's got a lot of very strong players backing him up. But, you know, the guy's the reason that the Tigers exist. So, big shout out to him. And thank you for allowing me to join. Because I had a fantastic weekend. As you can see, on my right here, that is their webpage, our webpage. So if you want to go along and check it out, then please do. The website's there. It's also trundling along the bottom, www.celtictigers.club. It's a good website. I mean, we do match reports, how we've done in previous seasons, the club history, plenty of photos of the team. You know, if you fancy sponsoring us, then of course there's a little space there for you. We can make it bigger, so you know, just let us know. So obviously one of our Tigers in party mode just a second ago. That's Chris. Look at that. What timing. Chris has popped in there thinking, which is always a good thing when it comes to chess. We're loosely associated with Hammersmith, but I don't want to go into that. And also, funny enough, with another brilliant website. I may have talked about these guys before, but you can go and check them out yourself. chesspatsunited.com. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to go through my first game for them. It was very exciting. I'd like to call it the free chance game because I basically had 3 chances to win it. I'm not going to say what the result was at the end until you're going to see that. So we'll get there. You know, I usually chat for too much and then forget that I've actually told you the result. So this time I'm going to try and remember that I'm not telling you the result until the actual game. If you want to go to, I've got to be careful here because I think I looked up the game. No, quick. Don't want to see any results. Ah, it's still there. Damn it. You may have caught that, but maybe not. But anyway, if you go to the 4NCL website, www.4ncl.co.uk, you can check out how the season's going for everybody. There's plenty of information on here about pairings, where we play, tables, the hotels we stay in, who the contacts are, etc. This is the top league in the UK, so if you're taking your chess seriously, then this is the place to go. Not only is it FIDE rated, it's also one of the longest time controls as well. I think the first time control was 1 hour and 40 each with 30-second increment to make the first 40 moves. Then you got another 50 minutes if you got to 40 moves, and then it's always plus 30 seconds. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just jump straight into the game, to be honest. I'm just going to draw the board. This bit I always struggle with, as you know. So let me just take out the previous, which I'm going to do now. Come on, remove. Don't fight me. We're friends here. There we go. It listened. And then I'm just going to quickly draw a board. Like, you know, who says that chess players aren't artists? I mean, apart from the art we create on the board itself, we can also, you know, imagine a board and it'll appear. Power of positive thinking. Come on. Create that board. Come on, I'm visualizing. There it is. Look at that. See that excellent piece of drawing. Also, should mention it's chess.com. Just in case they come after me with their vicious lawyers. In this game, I was white. And you've seen me play this opening before. And there's a reason why I play this opening, because it's so rich. You get so many decent attacking chances, regardless of what black decides to do, which there are many plans to play against. So probably giving the game away what opening it's going to be. And to be fair, I do need to start looking at the main line, because I know my tricky opponents will be watching these videos and at some point work out that there are a few holes in this opening, but you've got to find them. So My opponent was rated the same as me. We're both ECF 154. And this guy I played, I looked him up obviously beforehand. He hasn't actually lost any 4NCL games, which is quite impressive, really. I definitely can't say that. I haven't actually won a game either. I haven't managed to stick the ball in the net. Or have I? Is this the game? So yeah, just bear with as we go through a few of the opening moves. Obviously, I'm not going to talk too much about this, but it's the French Advance. And I play the... It's a kind of Milner Barry. I don't know what its real name is, but I call it the Knight BD2 line of the Milner Barry. Because you basically sacrifice your pawns in the middle of the board. So this is the last part where you can avoid the sacrifice. You can actually take the pawn here, which is actually a very good line. And maybe this will be the line I'll be looking at in the future. And then bishop takes. And then you just castle. And then the fight's going to be between, can I hang on to this pawn and how much counterplay will I get with my B pawn, which is also a very good game. And in this line, I'm not a pawn down, so it's definitely something to investigate. So let's go back. That would be the future. I'm also going to be looking at the main line, which is no bishop d3, bishop e2, and playing a3. But again, you know, that's another day. So I sacrifice the pawn, of course. He can take that pawn. There's no trouble there, and he does. It took a little while to take the pawn. I mean, I know he must know that he can take it. That's the whole point of bishop d7. And if anything, he probably knows the main line Milner Barry, because I think you have to as a French player, which is just knight c3. But it took a little bit of time. I think he was just gearing himself up to defend, basically, for the whole game, because that's what you end up doing. Yes, you're a pawn up, and it's a pass pawn as well, and even better, it's a protected pass pawn. So it's a big win in the end game if you survive that long. And it's up to you. If you're that kind of player that can just say, yep, thanks very much, free pawn. I don't mind struggling through the whole game, watching out for checkmates, forked pieces, pins, skewers, everything that'll come at you. Then you go for it. And I highly recommend you do, because it means that I'll still be able to have fun games. So he took the pawn. I'll play knight BD7, BD2, which is the line I was talking about before. And I've said this in previous videos, so I'm not going to go too much about this. But you can either take the knight, which my opponent does. You can bring your knight back, or you can play bishop to c5. Those are the three main plans. So not too much for white to look at. I'm not going to go too much into the other lines, because I think in other games they have played those lines, and I've gone into more detail. So just go to chesspatzersunite.com and check out the analysis videos. He took, I took, and he played bishop c5, which is fine. He wants to discourage me playing my rook to e1, which is cool, because the problem with rook e1 is he just takes f2 and wins my rook. So that's the idea behind this bishop. It's getting it out of the way as well. Obviously, he wants to complete his development. He wants to get his knight into e7 and castle. And I didn't have to think too hard here. And I must admit, I think I played the first 15 moves pretty quickly, trying to intimidate my opponent a little bit. I mean, he took all his time, and that's what you should do in chess. I think through the whole game, I had about a 20-minute advantage on him, which I definitely think helped coming close to the time control. Because I didn't have any pressure to find the time pressure. I mean, obviously, I have pressure to find the best moves, but I felt quite comfortable through the whole game. So I think I played at a good pace. I played quick when I knew what I was doing, and then when I knew I needed to really think about how to keep an edge or maybe get out of some sort of danger, I'm not going to go into that just yet, that I had enough time to do so. So I instantly throw b4 up the board. I mean, it's basically your plan in this opening. It's a very simple plan. You want him to take that pawn and then to have a big attack down the either. I mean, it's funny, this is actually a both sides of the board opening. And I'll show you a quick line. I mean, best line, well, if he takes with the bishop, it's a bit awkward, because you just pin that bishop. Oop. You pin that bishop, and it is quite awkward to get out of this, funny enough. I think I was going to go with something like, yeah, I mean, queen a5 would defend the bishop, otherwise because it's pinned, and I'll just play a3 and win it. So, you know, that's quite simple. And then now, with the queen and bishop offside, you can go straight for your kingside attack. Or you can sack another pawn by playing a3. Either or. Because the point being, if he takes it, you can either pin it or take the b pawn, which is, you know, this is quite silly to be taking even more pawns here, but you can. And in rook a1, actually no, rook a1 just wins. But even if you don't play rook a1, I mean, I'm not being funny, but you can take here. And this is also really good for white. I mean, you're threatening to actually sack the rook for this bishop and leave the king in the center of the board, which is definitely what you want to do in these sort of positions. This is the kind of game I'm looking for. This is why I was saying it's on both sides of the board. But of course, he doesn't have to take the pawn. And he can, if he wants to take the pawn, he should definitely take with a queen. You shouldn't self-pin for no reason. And this is where the other main idea behind what I was trying to go on about is we're going after the b pawn and d7 bishop. Yeah, it's probably fairly okay for both sides, but it's activity, and that's what I'm going for this opening. I find in the French, you find yourself black can get behind a really strong pawn structure, and it's quite difficult to break through. In this sort of game, it's a little bit more open, and you get a lot more play on the queen side than you're probably used to getting in the French. So I quite like this position. Obviously, that's another game, didn't happen. And he can still go pretty wrong here. He can even just come back to here. That's a terrible move. Again, rook times b7. And the whole point being that you just want to nab this bishop. And it's quite hard to stop. I mean, you have to play an exchange down. I mean, you've got to think about it that way, I guess. But anyway, it didn't happen. My opponent was rightly worried to take that pawn. I wouldn't want to take it. Like I say, he's already got one pawn. And he knows that if he grovels on, he'll be fine. So he decides to come back, which, I've gained a 10p, so I'm already happy. I'm going to gain another 10p, attacking the queen. And if he'd gone queen c7, I would have played rook c1, and we'd just be like happy days with the development. Would just be, I'll get there in a second. This is just a very nice position for white. I've got lots of options here. We can start the king. Can we go do it straight away? I don't know. Maybe. Well, I've got a couple of moves here actually. So I'm thinking of maybe just queen d2, defending the pawn, strengthening my control over g5. Eventually, it'll take a while for him to get that knight out. You see, so the knight g5 attacking ideas are coming into boot, and also after the queen's here, I'm also just gonna gain loads of space as well. I mean, he's gonna make a move, but b5 and a4 are coming, which kind of happens in the main game. So you want to take as much space as you can. You've been given time to do so. He didn't go for that, luckily. Well, not luckily, he worked it out. So he played queen d8, best move. And I take the space. It's two reasons, actually. I'm taking this c6 square away because the bishop actually becomes quite good if he gets to c6, because at some point he may be able to push this pawn, and then the bishop's got a very nice diagonal to attack my king. Two, it was on pre on b4. He could just take it with his bishop after, I don't know why he would suddenly decide to take it again, but the point is it's always there in the position, so he'd have the option to. And that's literally it. I've also freed up one more square for my queen, and maybe I can switch a Rooney over here. So b5, nice move. It clamps, it gives me options. Oh, jumped out of the screen. Hang on, coming back. You didn't see that, but I managed to jump into Windows mode, so that was great. I don't want to look at chessboard. I want to watch the Windows screensaver. Thanks very much for that, my PC. So he plays knight h6. Temptation is definitely just to take it straight away, ruin his pawn structure. But I've got to say, when I was looking at it originally, I didn't actually like the fact that it was actually pretty difficult to get in on the dark squares. His dark square control is really strong, so it's actually hard for me to get in. I'm probably okay here. I guess I could. I mean, you go for the H pawn, but then bishop g5 just looks all right. I don't know. This is the position I had in my head beforehand. I mean, computer's saying actually white's still pretty good here, but he wants me to play a bit of an odd move, which I didn't consider in the game. It's actually quite a nice little move, actually. Queen b4, cutting the king off so he can't castle. But then I guess if we play this on a little bit logically, let's see what happens. So queen e7 looks all right, and then we're going to go to d4. Okay. Alright, well, we got a nice centralized queen, but and it gives like an 0.5 advantage here. I'm not quite sure I understand why. I don't want to go too far off track. Anyway, the point being, I didn't even see queen b4. So what I looked at when I was in this position was, oh, right, and then what do? Do I take that bishop? And if I take the bishop, he can take back with the queen or the pawn. And is he much worse than me here? Probably not. I haven't got that many pieces. Okay, his king's not massively safe, but this pawn structure is pretty strong. So perhaps I'm not getting through for some time. So I didn't like that. So I didn't go for it. Not yet anyway. I thought, well, I can take his knight in another manner. The point being, with his knight on h6, if he ever decides to come into... I'll draw an arrow. If he ever decides to come into f5, I can just take it. And if I take it, pawn takes, and then I've got queen takes d5. And in this line it's pretty good because normally you worry about things like bishop e6 afterwards, but then I can take the b pawn too. And then suddenly I've got a very advanced pawn with another pawn coming down the board, and it's a very nice position. So kind of hoping he'd come in, and even then, again, if he comes into... I don't know why he would, but say he wants to waste a bit of time and come into... I can't even speak. If he comes into g4, I'll just put my bishop on f4 and I'll kick that knight away. So it's just a waste of time for that knight, and he'll just come back. And if anything, I've strengthened the pawn in the centre of the board. You've got to be careful with this pawn. It is extended. I don't have a pawn on f4 protecting it. So I was quite happy to see knight come into either of these two squares. So I waited. And I played a4. Because I need to defend that pawn on b5. And also I want to play at some point a5 and b6, etc. So, you know, get my pawns running. Nothing's happening too scary over on the king's side. There's no rush for anything here. I can wait a little bit. So he comes up with, which was a surprise on the board, and it's not as bad as it looks. Because first of all, you're saying, what the hell? And that is exactly what I thought, to be honest. But the computer likes it. And he said after the game, I didn't know when to play f5. And he thought actually this was the wrong time, but it is the exact perfect time to play f5. Because he just didn't like the tactics that came from it afterwards. Because I don't think he worked it out, basically. I think he was a tiny bit lucky in one respect, but I took on Basson because I wanted to weaken the e6 pawn. I want to weaken this diagonal against the king. If now I take that knight and he doubles up the pawns, you know, suddenly the king's got a lot of space in front of him. So that's the idea, and I was very happy to see f5 originally because I thought, oh yeah, he's just made a big blunder there. So he took with the bishop, attacking my rook, of course, which is what he saw up to this point, and he was like, well, this can't be bad for black. But he missed this next move, which was sweet, to say the least. Now the point being, he can't actually take the rook, because if he takes the rook, whoops, queen takes, it's pinned. He can't take back the bishop, because I'll just win his rook. So I think he missed that in his initial calculation. But he's all right. That's the annoying thing in this. He's actually okay, even after just what he actually plays, which is g takes. Obviously, he's not stupid. He saw that after the position was on the board. He realised that actually that pawn was going to be pinned afterwards. And again, you know, I mean, I like my position because his king's open and it should be crushing, and that's how humans think. But the computer's just saying, no, you got a bit of an edge. Which is why playing against the French is really frustrating sometimes, because you're like, I'm going to hammer this opening this time, and you know, it's a lot tougher than you think. So after g takes h, I'm thinking, well, if I can ever get my queen into h5 with check, I must be doing really, really well. And I can't currently do it because my knight's in the way. And I'm like, well, okay, I've got to move the knight, and if I move the knight, he can just take it. Literally anywhere where it goes, unless I go back to d2, which I don't want to do. I don't want a negative knight. The knight belongs on the central square in these sort of openings. So I was thinking about playing rook e1, and then obviously after he castles, I can play my knight in. But then I kind of didn't like the fact that his rook would then be lining up with a weakened f2 pawn. I mean, I know that sounds like a really long range worry, but you'd be surprised. You shouldn't really line yourself up with easy plans for your opponent. He can bring his queen into b6. You know, these are moves I've had trouble with in my past in chess. So you have to be a little bit careful. The other thing about rook e1 is, of course, I'm going to lose the exchange. I should really point out that this threat's real now. He can actually take this rook. So another move I considered was just moving the rook out the way. You know, take the c file. Nothing wrong with that. It's the computer's second choice, which leads to a level game. Or you can be a little bit imaginative and not just do, oh right, he's attacking my rook, I better move my rook, and have a real big think about, you know, what you want from the game. And as I say, I really want to play my knight into the centre of the board. So I do. And why can I do that? Because the check that follows up wins the bishop. So if he takes the knight, I win the bishop. Now, his next move really, really surprised me. And you're thinking, oh, right, yeah, well, you shouldn't be too surprised. It's just going to castle. And again, you know, actually, funny enough, it's quite hard to get through. I have managed to put my knight on a really nice square. And, you know, in my head, I'm following it up with queen g4 check, of course. Why not throw another piece into the vicinity? But after he sidesteps, I'm not really sure how to continue the attack, I've got to say. And I guess I have to try and bring in a rook lift of some sort. I don't know, maybe rook... let's get this rook unpinned. So we'll possibly bring the rook over to e1 and start looking at maybe potential swings. I mean, obviously I'm defending the knight at the same time. And if he takes that knight, then the rook becomes really strong, because then maybe I can float into here. So that's what vaguely... I mean, I didn't work out any concrete lines. I got to about this point and was like, well, I should be all right. And I think that's a lot of chess, especially at our level. You know, I'm talking about the Patzer level. You can't always work out stuff all the way to the end like these super GMs, and they know every tactic that they play, they've worked out concretely. I'm no way near good enough, and I miss a lot of stuff. So I got to this position in my head and thought, well, it looks pretty playable. His king's fairly open. Okay, I've got to watch out for a counter-attack down the g-file, definitely. But maybe I'm going to get an attack too. I mean, whatever's happening, this bishop's going to be bad for a little while, even if he tries to get it back round in ye old classic manoeuvre. I've actually got that square covered a lot. So it's not easy for black to get into the game. I mean, a lot of my strategy is trying to keep this bishop bad, which I'll come back to later on in the game. So I think this didn't happen, because I said the move that really, really surprised me was he took it. He actually took the knight. I was gobsmacked. I was like, well, I must be crushing now. Must be. And, he hasn't got a lot of moves. So, in this position, as white, for your first game for your new team, you would not be unhappy here. His king's in the open. It's floating in the centre. I can get my rooks to those files. The only downside is I am running out of pieces, and I don't have a dark square bishop, which would just be game over. And the computer, annoyingly, only gives me a +1 here, which is crazy. I'm only a pawn up with all these stupid pawns. But it made sense, because when I was sitting here in this lovely position, I was like thinking, all right, so I'm going to win somehow now. I just got to find the move, the winning move. And I couldn't find it. I sat there for a long time. I finally actually started eating up a lot of time here. I'm like, I know I'm better, but how do I get through? Anyway, I've got to wait to see what he does first. So he played Queen f8. He wants to get the queens off. He just wants to play something simple like Queen f6 and then basically laugh in my face. Now, again, I'm feeling, oh, you're taking the mix, son. You know, you haven't got time for any of this. Okay, you threaten that, then I'm just going to threaten to take this pawn. So now if he plays Queen f6, automatically we can just nab this pawn. It's all pinned, and the attack's going to come through at some point. We're just going to batter him. So obviously he saw that, so he played the only move. Well, not the only move, there's a few moves, but he played... I don't have to remember because I put in the PGN, which was a great way forward. I mean, all the PGNs are on the 4NCL website, so I didn't have to retype this game. And I'm thinking, well, your king's not getting away, son. I'm not letting that happen. No way. And in fact, even if I did let him, I mean, how far can it get? I mean, it gets to there. This rook is trapped, right? So I play a slightly strange move here, which computer loves, by the way, which is quite funny because what I'm doing is I'm trapping his king in the centre of the board, but I am allowing his terrible rook on C8, A8 to become active. But it doesn't seem to matter. I mean, because the point being, there's no pieces over the queen side, and I can bring another rook in. So it goes from him having something that's covering the back rank on the queen side to not covering the back rank. So that's why I justified the decision in the end to do so. I'm also just threatening something simple like just check, and then just winning the b pawn. You know, nice and simple chess. So I forced him to get rid of one of his worst pieces, funny enough. Which I do take, of course. I just said why. His king's still cut off. He can't get to the b8 square, so he's not going to get safety. Not yet. And my queen is in a great square, by the way. It's covering the h8 rook. We got a nasty little square here as well, which is something I take advantage of straight away. With rook check. Now here the computer is screaming at me. it's saying, I mean, I know I'm winning. Don't get me wrong. I mean, come on, his king's still not safe. I'm going to win all his A and B pawn, and my A and B pawn are going to win, and I'm going to, you know, crush through. So I like to think of this as point one. Remember, I said there was 3 points to this game where I was, you know, crushing, and I don't know if one of them get through, but we'll find out. Obviously, you know, that's the point of this video. Now, the move I play here is good enough. It's all right. It does the job, shall we say? But there's a really tough move to find here, and and I want you guys to at this point. This is the point where you're gonna pause. Like, this is the classic pause the DVD, YouTube video, whatever you're watching this medium on, and you find the winning move for white. Now, the funny thing is, if someone does that to you in a tournament position, someone comes over and taps you on the shoulder, one, it's cheating. But two, if they could do it and it was allowed, then you would suddenly go into, right, I'm going to start looking at a lot of moves I wouldn't normally consider here. Because it's not obvious. And as I said, Queen C7, which is what I play, I'm not going to ruin that surprise, definitely wins. And it's a long line, but it definitely wins if you play it right. But I did sit here and I knew there was something in this position, but I couldn't find it. And the reason I couldn't find it, I'm going to help you out here, just and then give you another little minute, is because for the whole game, I've literally made this bishop the worst piece on the board for as long as possible. So he's basically playing a piece down in my eyes. But now's the opportunity, weirdly, for you to swap it off if you can. And if you can, then you've got a crushing attack. So that should be good enough for you to work out how to win this position. And it's such a odd move, but b6 exclamation mark, so tough to find, because obviously I saw b6 and I saw, he's just going to take it, you know, why am I giving away a pawn for nothing? I'm not going to play bishop b5 and swap off his bad bishop, which in fact is the best move by so far. He's just crushing. I mean, what'd you do here? I know it sounds silly. It's like, well, what's changed? Nothing's changed, right? Well, the point is, this c7 square without the bishop on there, without this bishop, is huge. And this is what I mean by it. I don't know. Let's play a move. Let's play a move for. Okay, let's just take it. Sod it. Let's just take. That'd be your first thing. Like, you know, I'm finally going to get rid of my bad bishop. Why the hell not? And I'll take back. And now play a move for black that doesn't lose instantly. It's just horrible. This position is nasty. Whoops. Sorry, I've jumped into screensaver mode again. What'd you do? I mean, this is attacked. This is, you know, not the biggest problem in the position. Maybe we're going to get rook to c7. We've got queen coming into b8. There's a lot of moves that are coming on them. And I'll play the best move for black in this position, which is this. It's just how bad the position is. And I'll go back and show you some normal moves in a second. I mean, this is just mate in, like, what's that, 1? Is that's just mate in 1 coming? How do you stop that? You can give up your queen, basically. And you can give up your queen any way you like, you know, on c5, whatever. You're winning the queen. That's the only way to stop the mate. So instead of h5, let's have a look. So we want to defend the pawn, for instance. Well, if you move the queen to defend the pawn to this square or this square, of course we're winning the rook, so that's not going to happen. So, whoops, that's not a defense either. Those as good as. So say we just go into d8, we're controlling e6 and everything else. Well, that's mate in 1. So no defense. Basically, there's no defense here whatsoever. No matter what you try and play, you can try and run. Doesn't work. Rook c7 check. King comes back, and this is a brilliant little move. This one, rook takes b7. There's no way to stop here. That's mate. Computer sacks his queen on f2 just to spite you. So there you go. And I didn't play that move, obviously. I said I didn't. I played queen c7 check, which is also a good move. But I mean, that's a big eye opener. And I think this game will stay in my mind for quite a while, because I just felt there was something there and I just couldn't see it. So anyway, queen c7 check. King moves. Now, everybody in the pub afterwards was saying, well, why am I not just... I mean, I saw this line as well, but why am I not just taking this b pawn? Well, the point is the queen's come off straight away, and we're only level material. I do get, you know, play. Don't get me wrong. This is still a a big plus white, funny enough. And the line I chose is still big plus for white, but I don't know. I just felt like I was giving him sort of chances to hold on, which is hilarious because the line I do choose gives him hope to hold on. I mean, I didn't even really see rook a8, which is the best move. The move I was looking at was rook c8, and this is about vision and how much I can see or not. And I was just paranoid about this check coming down here, but I didn't need to worry about this check, not really. I was worried about in conjunction with the pawn perhaps coming down the board. I've got to say these space invaders are a little bit nerve-wracking for me. But whatever happens, I'd always have bishop back to f1 to stop any mate threats. And here I could even actually, computer suggesting a great move, just f4. I mean, it feels weird for me because I feel like I'm actually letting him get in with lots of activity. And the route I chose didn't give any of this activity, which is why I think it was the better line. And unfortunately, my second chance, because this line I've just done there was just perfectly fine. That was actually +4, believe it or not. So I didn't go for that. I went for, which, funny enough, is the computer's best line, queen c5 check. And now the reason I've done this is because I pick up the a pawn, and then okay, we're level material again. But the important thing here is if he tries to challenge the queen, which he does, otherwise I'm just winning the b7 pawn as well, and it's rook c8 and it's all over. Just saying, you know, if he tries something else, I don't even know what you would try here. I don't know, try a counter-attack against the king. Even this is stupid, but you know, this is just to demonstrate a point. Just queen takes b7, and you know, this bad bishop that I was trying to keep bad the whole game. It just lets you down basically. Damn, why don't I not swap off that bishop? Just saying. So yeah, check, and I pick up the a pawn, and he does the right thing. He tries to swap off queens and just be level on material. But of course, I'm not going to do that. Recentralize. I'm attacking his rook, so it's not easy to make him move it. He can't move his queen easily now. So he plays the best move, rook c8. Of course, he's threatening mate in 1. Oh, it's not mate in 1. That's why I gotta say. That's why I had this problem in the game. I think I was really over nervous about my back rank. I think a little bit was to do with the first time playing for my team. I didn't want to mess up, you know, after having such a nice attack. That I didn't play too bad. I mean, I play a good move here. But I must say, a bit more of a panic of all my back rank. And even if I'm not seeing the mate, I mean, not even if I know it's not mate because I've got bishop f1, I still don't want my bishop on f1. It just doesn't feel right. What's it doing on f1? At some point, you know, he may, and this is the kind of thing that happens to you in middle games when you've had long games. You start worrying about the pawns coming down, the bishop suddenly coming good, and you know, my bishop somehow pinned. And I know this sounds crazy, but you've got to think about this stuff, because if you don't think about it, you can't stop it. So you've got to, you know, have in your head. I mean, don't get carried away and too panicky about it. And I came up with rook f1. And you're thinking, what? Why won't you go to e1? E1 looks nice, and he does, and it's a good move. But again, I'm giving him activity, and I'm trying not to do that. That was the whole point of taking the a pawn. Queen's coming in with 10p on the rook. And now I'm like, okay, now I'm attacking you, aren't I? But I'm leaving all this back rank stuff, and I don't think it's necessary. I don't need to do it. I don't need to take the risk, so I didn't. I come up with another plan. I'm thinking that would be the end of the game. It's simple. There's just once that happens, it's over. So this is chance 2 of what I've been going on about. I know I said chance 1 was definitely over here with the b6 move. This is chance 2 after playing rook f1. I had the right plan. Queen came in, and then without even thinking here, I played a blunder. All right. Now I was all set with my plan, so I just went on with it. I mean, I think I fell into that classic rut of you've been winning the whole game, and so you know you're carrying on winning. So you know, just keep going, and you start losing a little bit of fear of your opponent's position, because after I played rook f1, I'm like, well, there's no checks or anything like that, so I can just get on with my game. Now, great moves here, and you'll understand why in a second. King h1, really hard move to stop, and you'll understand that in a second. And I can also just go straight in with a check, just get my queen out of the way. And you're thinking, what is he going on about? And this is the problem when you've been playing a long game. And I must say, we both used a lot of time here to get to this point now. I'm still up. I mean, like I say, I stayed about 20 minutes, probably about 15 minutes up here on the clock. But I felt like I'd been in a couple of big fints up to this point. And I played a little bit too quickly f4. And of course, if I play f5, I've won. his position finally collapses all over himself, which is fantastic. And he instantly and obviously played this move. It's a great move. I'm still got an edge, of course, but the queens are coming off and there's nothing I can do about it. And that is the problem here. I did not consider this when I got to this position, and his queen's gone to a5. I'm like, oh well, he's just trying to put his, he's not going to put his queen on b8 because it's just rubbish there. He's just trying to get his queen in, and I don't know why. Big time chess blindness. Of course, he's got a rook here. You know, he's trying to get back into the game, and I just completely overlooked it. And I've got to say, even when he played it instantly, I was like, oh yeah, so what? I'm just going to move my queen, and then it dawned on me. And at this point, I had to go into another big think. Because unfortunately, no matter what I do, the queens are coming off. I'm not taking that queen because obviously that makes his rook really active. So we'll make him put the queen onto the square. There we go. And that's why I was telling you about king out the way or queen out the way. Either or would have done the job here. So the queens are coming off. And I got to say, this is a good part of the game. And what I mean by this is I finally managed to press a reset button. And this is now my third opportunity to win this game. Because I've had my two pretty good chances, and now my third chance. My position is not bad. I'm still in a nice place. He still has a bad dark square bishop. Okay, the queens are coming off. There's no more mating attacks coming. I'm just going to have to win the ending. And I managed to hit the reset button and go, you know what? I'm all right here. I don't want him to take me, because if he takes me, I mean, like, I could play king f2 here. Which is actually not a terrible move. The computer's actually saying it's all right. What I chose is also okay. Not much difference by compy look, but the point being queen takes and then king takes. But I just didn't like the idea of leaving myself pinned, and for a concrete line where, you know, you take when you've decided to reset, you start recalculating. You're like, okay, well, I missed all this stupidity after f4, so I'm going to actually have a think about it. If I take his queen, then I know his rook's going to be on c5, and I can start my plan. So I came up with a plan. I took that queen. He took it back, and I played rook a1, and I'm like, you know what? And I obviously, after my reset, I got to this position in my head, and I'm like, you know what? This is really tough for black to defend. I mean, I can't immediately push this pawn, but if I can, then that pawn's a racer, right? I'm gonna have an outside pass pawn, and I'm gonna win again, I should say. And I was thinking, yep, and I don't care about moves such as b6 doesn't seem quite right. What would have done on b6 actually? Let's have a quick look what computer would have said. Because I can't remember, I played this game a couple of weeks ago, so I can't exactly remember what I was thinking. Oh yeah, I'm going to follow through with the plan that I'm going to play anyway. So b6 doesn't actually stop what I'm trying to do. My opponent played king g7, defending the h7 pawn from the bishop. But I've left them pawns alone for quite some time because they're not going to get any stronger. Not unless some miracle happens. So I'm just leaving them as weak. And he offered me a draw here. But why are you offering me a draw? Your weakness on your dark squares are ridiculous. I mean, this is... Okay, I don't have a dark square bishop, but nor do you. And this is where b6 wouldn't have stopped anything. Because b6, I'm still coming in on the dark squares. And my opponent completely ignored me here. And basically he just wants to march his h pawns down the board and try and cause some chaos on my free pawns here. But I'm like, well, you're... Red rag to a ball, in comes the king. The king is coming to get you, mate. What are you going to do about it? So he finally realises that the king's actually pretty damn strong, giving me that a5 push. So now we're rolling. I'm right, okay. This has been a really long game, but I'm going to finally win this game. I haven't played any terrible moves, but just not accurate enough. So yeah, as I say, a5, a6, and game over. He finally brings his king in to stop my king coming in. So off we go with the passed pawn. Takes. And now. Oh, I've got to take a little stretch here. Which way around would you take? What would you take with? Intuitively and with a little bit of calculation. What was your first thought here when you saw this position? I can tell you my intuition said take with the B pawn and have a passed A pawn. And then in my head, I was like, okay, well, hang on a minute. If you do take with the A pawn, here I have bishop c6 covering the queen in square, and the bishop's not terrible there. And I don't know. I just felt like I was never getting the pawn through to a8 if I allowed his bishop to c6. But it's by far the best move. And the reason is, and I'm a little bit unlucky here in one way, I chose to take with the rook, and I'll tell you why I did this. Well, lots of reasons actually, and it's just not as good. It's still a plus for white, but it's +3 if you take with the a pawn. That a pawn's actually a big pig in the ear. Like, I'll just show you a quick line because it makes sense. It's no good me just saying it's really good if it's not. I remember I said about this move, and I was like, oh yeah, well, and then there's nothing. I don't know. The bishop sits on a8 and it's over, but you actually start causing a lot of problems for this bishop. I mean, like, it's not. Well, you can't move it now because I'll just take the rook. So you come back and you defend the rook. And of course a7, and you're no longer defending the a8 square, and you're just going to get through. There's not a lot you can do. You can stick your rook in the corner if you really want, and then the rook is dominating the whole game. This is just over. There's I'm hoovering up pawns, I'm hoovering up pieces. I mean, there's not really a lot of defense here. This rook is just out the game forever, and this rook's just having the time of its life on the 7th rank. So there you go. So there you go for not looking hard enough. But as I say, I want to justify why I chose what I chose, and I told you why I thought just bishop c6 and a8 was happening, but it's not. It's too slow. It just doesn't work. So that didn't happen. Come on, let's go to the position. So I took with the rook. Now the reason I took with the rook was a few reasons. Right, one, I'm pinning this pawn. And you're like, so? But then f5's a threat again. So like, it's a good move for that reason. Two, I was thinking, well, maybe if the rook was an rook pawn, if the pawn was an a pawn, oh my gosh, well that is correct. But if the pawn was a rook pawn, which is what I'm trying to say, I was thinking, oh, isn't that supposed to be harder to queen? And on knight's pawn supposed to be a bit easier. But it totally depends if you've got your king up the board enough. And my king isn't, funny enough, though I felt like it was. But not only was I pinning this pawn for a potential cheapo of f5, I was actually just thinking, you know what, this is a nice place for a rook. I can get my pawn to b6, my rook to a7, and my rook's more active where it is. But rooks belong behind passed pawns, and there's a reason why you say stuff like that. Because he came up with some great moves now. My opponent actually played out of his skin here, which was obviously frustrating for me. So rook c3, you're thinking, oh well, so what? That doesn't matter. I'm just going to push the b6 pawn. Yeah, you want to push a b6 pawn and get a queen? Well, you lose instantly because he's just going to take your bishop. And there we go. And this is why in this position I'm a bit unlucky in one way. I mean, I should have played a takes, but the point being, this is why rook takes wasn't so good, because the coordination of his pieces just work out. And this is why rook c3 was a great spot for my opponent. But of course, I've been playing this game long enough now, where you get to these points and the point is don't switch off. So once I see the threat and I just defend the pawn. So I'm like, okay, so what? My rook's still going to get up to b7 and it's still going to cause a lot of trouble. I'm defending the pawn, I'm going to have a very active rook. My king eventually is going to get in. So he plays rook b3. He just wants to, one, he's looking after the pawn. Two, he wants to get active by maybe coming down to the b2 and maybe start munching my pawns from behind. So nice move. So I bring my king in. Check. Now I can just bring my king back, I guess, and we'll repeat position. It's a draw. So I'm like, nope. King's coming in. I must say, I still thought I was winning here. Even with all these little dancing around, I'd seen that my king was coming into d6 and there was nothing he could do to stop it. So he takes the pawn. And now we've got two passed pawns. And now I've got to say, on this point, I was a bit nervous about my next move. Which is, I'll put on the board. A little bit nervous. And the point is, if bishop comes back, then I've got lots of moves here actually. But rook b8 is a nice move. That pretty much, I'm going to get the b pawn through. There's not a lot going to stop it. But when I played this move, I played it with a little trepidation because I was thinking, well, actually, now my king's actually on the wrong side of these pawns. And if they ever get motoring, well, they're two passed pawns and my king can't stop them. So, I was a little bit apprehensive. But then my opponent played this move, which is a brilliant move. And I'm like, ugh. He's basically taken away all my winning chances because he's aiming for a rook and bishop versus rook ending. Because he's calculated, and he offered me a draw in this position, that he's winning both my G and H pawn. And I have to be careful because, as I said before, these two pawns are actually really fast. And if it comes to a point where I sack my bishop for just one of them, I'm actually worse. So, like, fair play to, you know, again, once he played it and I was like, no, well, I'm not going to take a draw, even though, like, you could be nervous and be like, yeah, thank you very much. I'm like, no, I've done some calculating here. And yes, I lose both my pawns, but you lose both your pawns too. And you're thinking, no, that can't be right. Well, watch. He'd calculated this. So, I can't get back to defend that in any way, shape or form, that G pawn. So I ignored it. Now the point being, my king is still really well placed here, and everybody knows if you line up queens and you bring a rook over, then the king has to step away. I mean, that's just a checkmate, isn't it? When you're trying to checkmate with a king and rook. So I had that in my mind when I played rook b1. So he took here, check, king has to move away. I get rid of one of those scary pawns. He takes my pawn. I take his last pawn, and I sat here, and this is 0-0-0, which is annoying. Stupid computer. But I felt I had chances. And do you know what? I felt I had chances in a slightly unusual ending as well. Now, I would fancy my chances, funny enough, against someone my own rating with bishop and rook versus rook. Even though it's a draw, I feel like we're way capable of messing it up and I could checkmate him. But I thought, I thought I was being imaginative. I thought, hang on a minute. Well, maybe if I leave these pawns, I can round them up. And I do round up one of them, which I'm going to demonstrate now. That I could actually use this pawn as a box. And maybe if I ever get his king on this side of it, well, he has no square backwards anymore. So maybe, you know, if you want to mate someone, you've got to put the king in a box and checkmate. So I actually thought I was being clever by keeping this pawn alive. Because I thought it gave me more options to trap his king. So the game went on. I'm just trying to, you know, get my pieces back into the right squares. He checks, of course. I bring my king over. He gets behind my king, which is correct. I forced him into the box that I talked about. So yeah, so now I'm thinking, well, somehow, I don't know how to do it exactly, but if the king ever gets down to the H1 and he's followed up with his pawn, and his king's totally boxed in, then this would actually be checkmate. If I ever got my bishop onto this diagonal. So I'm still feeling that I've got chances here. So I bring my king in, because I'm going for that plan that I just mentioned. He checks, I block with check. His king comes down, my rook comes up. I'm threatening to take that pawn, thank you very much. Just plays pawn down. And I'm like, okay, I'm nearly getting him into the box I want. You know, if he plays king here or here, I must be getting close. I must be. And if nothing else, I can pick that pawn up and maybe go for the rook versus bishop, because obviously right now he's playing good moves, and so he hasn't walked into anything trappy yet. And here I was like, really? Can you do that? Can you? And I was like, okay, well, how do I do this? How do I cause more trouble? How do I? Got to be a little bit careful. I mean, in some magical world, he actually queens this. And this game's gone on long as well. So we're on move 54 here. And I've got to say, I'm tired. I've been trying to win this game from like move 2. Well, move 1, e4. Go Tigers. So I'm pretty knackered, I've got to say. And you can put this position on your PC if you want. But every single line is 0, 0, 0, 0. And I just gave up, basically. I was just like, no, this pawn is well supported. What do I do here? What do I even do? I mean, I'm even now I'm looking at this going, yeah, what would you have done, to be quite honest? We could try the check line, and he's just going to move his king somewhere safe, I guess. Just here, that'll do. King g5, okay, whatever. But the point is, I'm making no progress here, and I'm not coming near his king, so there's no checkmate. And that's the annoying thing about chess. Sometimes you just got to realise it's a draw. So I let him finish in a way, like, you know, he's held on for the whole game, and I let him finish the way he wanted to. Even though, like, after this move, I can see it. I do know what's happening on the next move. When he played this move, he went, you know, like, yeah, see, you didn't see that kind of thing. Of course I saw it. I mean, anyway. I didn't like that because it was a nice game up to that point, and he was said that afterwards. And after I walked off and calmed down, I came back and we had a chat, and you know we talked about it being a really good game, and it was a good game. But he didn't need to do that. You know, obviously I'd seen far enough that everything was coming off and everything like that. It's just silly. Um, silly reaction from my opponent, and then maybe silly from me because I didn't have to get annoyed about it. But he'd held on for the whole game, and then he got away with it right at the death, right? So anyway, that's the end of that video. I know that was long, but I haven't done one of these for a long time, so I felt like I really needed to get into the game so you could feel my pain. And my win in a 4NCL team is still waiting because the next day, after a very fun night out, guys, so to all the Celtic Tigers that were with me, cheers, that was a lot of fun. I can't say my head was in the best shape for the next day, so I have to think about that on the next weekend, which is in January. But anyway, I'm back. I should have a little bit more time to do some online chess and some analysis, so hopefully be firing out a few of these. So I'll see you on the next one, but thanks for watching. Oh, please like and subscribe.